Hello there. Right now, as a nation, we in the UK are being taught a lesson in energy security. As per usual, please like, subscribe and comment below. And when subscribing, please do press that little bell, but also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. We're watching as Russia gets an ever tighter grip by the day on the energy gonads of Germany and the wider EU, and that affects us in the UK as well. We outsourced our government to the EU for 4 decades, which outsourced our energy supplies for all of us, allowing governments to glow in false carbon claims saying, "Look at how green we are," leaving Russia to grab the rest of Europe by the stones over supplies of natural gas. We went all in for wind power, and as Fortune reported in September. But just as Europe needs energy the most, the wind in the North Sea has stopped blowing, forcing regional energy markets to scramble for gas reserves to heat homes and power businesses. This has had expensive consequences. And now electricity prices are spiking all over the place, as the gas-powered plants are forced to use ever more expensive and hard-to-come-by natural gas to keep the nation warm, with oilprice.com saying yesterday that natural gas prices could spike as Europe braces for its first cold blast. And the weather people are now predicting a snowfall and extreme cold coming in the next few days. And I'll guarantee you one thing, I bet those eco-loons will still be switching on their heating and their gas cookers without a thought when the wind turbines stop. I bet we won't see them shivering and blue in their icy homes out of commitment to their cause. Oh, and just to be clear, this cold snap is going to be Europe-wide, so everyone across the continent will be scrambling for whatever gas they can get. And the UK energy crisis is deepening, with 2 more energy suppliers hitting the buffers today and pulling out of the market. At this rate, we'll have to renationalise the whole gas market soon. Anyway, while Russia holds the leash, Putin is also pouring troops and tanks in the direction of the Ukraine, with reports that a force far larger than the UK army is being amassed for that one operation. Russia is piling on the pressure. And what does Germany do? Suspends approval for the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. This is said to be a temporary technical suspension and not politically motivated. But I'm sure the only effect it will have is to further reduce gas reserves and put prices up even more. And all brought on by decades of crassly wrong-headed energy policies by successive EU and UK administrations, who would rather see someone else drill and provide gas so they can pretend to be the clean ones. They are not. Every cubic foot we import is as if we drilled it out ourselves. The same with every hundredweight of coal we import and use to make our steel. We can't make steel without it. And the steel we do import carries the same coal marker as the steel we make here, if not much worse. And our outsourcing of nuclear power provision to China has been nothing short of disastrous. And most people will not be aware of this until the lights go out or the cooker won't light. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. But our whole energy policy has been a complete shambles for years, and no one has the courage to deal with it properly for fear of incurring the "how dare you" wrath of Greta. And now with Russia flexing its muscles, we suddenly find that we've also outsourced our defence. Together with other nations, we handed the lot to NATO, and not all of them paid their dues by spending 2% of their GDP on defence, like we have, mostly. thus leaving NATO a much reduced force, to the extent that Russia quite happily uses a satellite-destroying weapon system to dispatch one of its defunct satellites into smithereens, leaving chunks of space debris to orbit the Earth forevermore, endangering the International Space Station and its Chinese counterpart in the process. And that should be a massive wake-up call. And the timing, with Russian troops looking to be aiming for Kiev. The ramifications of this on international communications and navigation systems are huge. And the Russians are jumping up and down gleefully, boasting about how accurately the system was that took that satellite out. Which Western satellites are now in their sights, ready to stop any interference in their plans for the Ukraine. And now look back to when Biden almost unilaterally vacated Afghanistan, leaving the rest of us to sort out our own affairs. It showed the real weakness of all the other players, and that will not have been lost on Putin. Now, I'm not saying the UK should somehow go it alone with Ukraine against Russia, but what I'm not seeing is any real pushback against Putin by the US, NATO or the EU. Now, NATO provided the umbrella of peace under which the EU was formed, and since then, as far as I can see, the EU has tried to undermine NATO and replace it with its own setup. Now look where that's got us, and I don't see the EU doing much to help Ukraine. So the Russian bear on the prowl in space as well as on the earth, and NATO is effectively asleep. Now the next big question is, do unlawful actions actually have consequences in modern UK? But before I get onto that, I just want to say a massive thank you to all my Super Thanks, Patreon and PayPal supporters, as well as those that do buy a mug with my mug on it. Links in the descriptions box below. You really do help me keep this channel going. When taking a look around the UK today, you could be forgiven for thinking that evil is rewarded and doing the right thing is always punished. Just look at who generally gets the honours and the money, and who ends up at the bottom of the pile and suffering the repercussions of other people's crimes. Look at who the police treat with kid gloves, and who gets the taser and baton treatment. And if arrests are made and sentences are handed out, look at who gets the soft sentences. And look at who gets the tax breaks and who gets their triple lock broken into. Take a look at the Houses of Parliament to see what the people we elect and appoint get up to, as an example of what you need to do to get on in modern Britain. We now hear that Tory politicians helped some 50 companies win untendered contracts using a VIP fast lane for PPE contracts at the height of the pandemic. We live in a society where being corrupt and disgraced is an entry requirement for high-ranking political power. Just look at who made the money from the recent national crisis and who they are affiliated with. Yet the majority of people go about their daily business tipping their caps to their betters at every given opportunity. One rule for them and another for the rest of us. And up until now, the same could be said of those pesky Insulate Britain activists who go around supergluing their hands and feet or even faces to roads and even onto police vehicles. They disrupted people's lives and work, as well as putting those that rely on the emergency services at risk. All with what looked like police and court acquiescence. And as far as Insulate Britain activists are concerned, it seems that the ordinary person on the street is in the way of their aims, so collateral damage amongst them is acceptable. An example being the lady ending up stuck in an Insulate Britain traffic jam and becoming paralysed as a result. Yes, because of ambulance delays, her son was driving her to hospital, but got held up in an Insulate Britain blockage. They were stuck for 6 hours, with doctors saying if she'd arrived within 90 minutes, all would have been okay. But they didn't, so she wasn't. And don't tell me that man and his mother were not unlawfully imprisoned in that one place by those activists. All because Insulate Britain have an idea, and we must obey their whims. Well, sorry, the court slapped an injunction on you lot and said no more of this nonsense. You ignored that injunction, and today some of you will hopefully be seeing bars for a few months or more. But only if the judges actually do what they're meant to do. These offences are about contempt of court, which could mean up to 2 years in jail, an unlimited fine and seizure of assets. So if the judges do let these people off lightly, it will only encourage them to be further contemptuous of the courts. In fact, the Mail is reporting one activist saying that if they don't go to jail today, they'll be straight out there gluing themselves to the next highway they come across. But another activist said he was terrified. He felt like crying and he was his pants about going to clink. Well, it's a bit late for that, mate. Should have thought about that while you were sat there smugly glued to the tarmac, causing widespread anger and frustration. Thankfully, Pret-a-Manger stopped them holding a press conference in one of their cafes today to spout their nonsense. But other activists are very combative, saying that if they go down, 10 will replace them, etc., etc., etc. If that's the case, I expect to see them joining their mates in jail. And I hope the judges see these comments as aggravating the contempt of the courts and add a bit on the sentence for good measure. Anyway, there are 9 of them up in front of the beak today, and I'm hoping to see some keys being thrown away, with their cells being well padded with insulation. And I understand another 23 will follow in the footsteps over the next few coming days. So what's your opinion on UK energy security? Please like and comment below.